All right, so this is part two of the Giants of Kandahar and what I think of them. We already discussed some facts that were going around. They said this creature was 1,200 pounds, and they picked it up with a helo, transferred it to a some type of jumbo airplane, and then took it to wherever they took it to, the military, So they took it away. I took it away to study it. Here's the thing about the military. The military would probably have liked to capture it live. And I'm betting a dime to a dollar that they're looking for another one. They also made all of the people sign an NDA, which is non-disclosure agreement, but somebody did eventually talk. And they said that the person talked because they felt like America needed to know about what's on the planet, what's they're possibly fighting against. Well, people don't usually care unless it's attacking them. If it's disturbing their, way of life, then they usually care. You know what I'm saying? But if it's a, giant crocodile, it's like, so what? If it's eating people over there in, whatever country, as long as it's not eating us, we're good. That's pretty much the attitude when it comes to those things. We've been claiming that there are Bigfoots and Wendigos and Mothmen and all that, but nobody has a clean picture of any of these, but everybody is pure speculation and hyperbole. So people don't care unless this giant is walking down the street, then everybody wants to take a picture of it. But in this case, these giants didn't particularly come out and be like, hey, it's American soldiers, how you guys doing? No, it killed somebody. So it's automatically hostile towards Americans now, or towards soldiers now. We can look at that in a few different ways. We can go, well, he's at the top of his food chain. He recognized others at the top of their food chain. And so he's like, come on, let's fight. Let's get this over with. 2, he could have felt cornered because he came out of his cave and met them head on. It was like, hey, not going to happen. Just like a bear or a lion would have done. Like, we're going to come out swinging. Andor, he had a metal spear, so there's some type of intelligence. He forged a spear. Okay? So if he can forge a spear, he can recognize what an enemy is in a heartbeat and engage that enemy. So, the U.S. has been blowing people up for a very long time. These creatures hiding in the mountains is no surprise because they know the power that our armies have. They know we can destroy the planet with the push of a button. So why not hide from us? I mean, listen, people fear what they don't understand. So why not hide from us? Hell, if I was a 12-foot giant, I wouldn't want to come out and be like, hey, everybody love me. No, we know that, the U.S. and, other European countries have a bad habit of capturing things they don't understand and then making a circus out of them. This is what the zoo is all about. We capture these animals and go, hey, look at these animals. Look how we're treating them. We're so good to them. We're feeding them. And then every now and then, one of the zookeepers get, unalived because these animals don't belong in cages. They don't belong in jail. Look at what they did to Sarah Barton. She had the, big old breast, big old booty, black woman. You know what they made her? They made her a spectacle. Then they made it, then they over-sexualized her. And, she died poor and broke. because they treated her like a sex object and they did all heinous things to her because she was an anomaly. They had never seen a booty that big or anything like that. And they've done the same thing with just an assortment of people that look different. So why not hide from us? I would hide from us too. We're dangerous. We'll capture you, and then we'll make you, do things that you don't want to do. And if you don't do them, we'll go ahead and deem you a danger against us, and then we'll go ahead and end your life and anyone who's like you. You people are a danger, blow them all up. Boom, next thing you know, the mountains are blown up. I think the giant did exactly what he was supposed to do. He wanted to be left alone, but he saw a threat. And he answered the threat with the threat. That's what I think. Now, like I said, do I think that there's more of them? Absolutely. I think that they're hiding in mountains all over the place. Now, if we get biblical again, you're going to find out that there are a lot of creatures that are hiding in mountains. And a lot of these creatures are things that people wrote about thousands of years ago. We also find out that there are cities and whole civilizations that lived purely in the mountains. There are underground cities that are now being discovered, some in Egypt and all over the place. There are whole landscapes that are just cut out in mountains, deep in the mountains, that we're all finding out about. It's like the dwarves. That's what it's like. It's like the dwarves and digging into the mountain and digging real deep. That's what I think this is. That's where I think these creatures come from. I think that there's a whole city, a whole civilization that are buried deep, deep, deep within the mountains. Because the further you go down, the warmer it gets. So it's, they can dig so far and survive. You know what I mean? And come up every now and then just to grab a hold of animals. There have been illustrations where these giants would track down buffaloes on foot and snatch them up by their hand. Grab one buffalo in one hand, grab a buffalo in another hand, and, take them in. Just like you would grab a rabbit, they would grab a whole bison. I mean, think about that. How big and strong do you have to be to snatch up a buffalo? Two of them. Just grab one in one arm, and they would run after these buffalo and snatch them up like we would do a rabbit. Snatch, snatch, boom, this is dinner. So yeah, I think that these redhead giants exist. I think that they are intelligent. I think that even though the metal spear, was so-called primitive to us, I think in CQB they could handle their own with no problem. And here's another thing. If we go into those mountains and we introduce ourselves to them, and they are a warrior-like race, just like we are, but they're faster, they're stronger than us, they live longer than us. They can just do things that we can't even fathom doing. If they get a hold of any of our technology, like if they know how to build howitzers and M4s and M3s and A2 laws and Harrier jump jets and all. I mean, just imagine how terrible it would be for us if we came up against a race like that. That could pretty much step on 10 of us at a time. We're not going to beat them hand to hand. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. I mean, just imagine if a cool million or so of them just poured out of the mountains. Just came alive and said, you know what, we're sick of it. We're gonna kill and eat as many of you as we can because you won't leave us alone. And just think about that. Now just think if that happened on every continent. All of a sudden, this hole opens up and these 15 to 30-foot people come out of this hole. And I mean, what are we going to do? They were taking on M4s to the face, and it didn't even slow them down. There was a group of them that killed this thing, and they all had M4s. Okay? Okay? Nah, we're no match. We're no match against them. So I say, one, leave them alone. Do I think there's more? Absolutely. 100. Yes, I think there's more of these giants. And I think they're alive. I think they're very much alive. And I think they're very much intelligent. And I don't think they're to be messed with. I don't think we should go looking at them to say, how did you survive? What have you been doing? I don't think we need to send an archaeologist in there, paleontologist. I think people should mind their business, but that's just me. I know that it's not going to happen because, let's just face it. White people, what's going on? White people, here's your blessing and curse. You want to know everything. And some things you just don't need to know. You want to know everything because you have no predators. You're at the top of the food chain. But that can change in an instant. We've seen plenty of movies where it has, because you went sticking your nose into something you shouldn't. You dug too deep into the ground. You went too far out into the space. You went too far into the water. We're finding that, we know that 5% of the oceans have been discovered. 95% of the oceans haven't been discovered. 95. Okay, just drink that in. Just 95% of what we live on has not been discovered. And there are all kinds of civilizations in the water that live in the water. And some of the things that we heard about in folklore, like the Kraken, ain't no giants, this is a never-ending story. Stop about. Well, I don't believe you whatsoever, because according to the Bible, there are giants, and there are many races of them. Not only are they mentioned, they all have names. The Nephilim, the Raphaim, the Emen. Yeah, they had names. In the book of Deuteronomy and the book of Genesis. Yet, so you could say what you want, but I believe the holy text over anything. And according to the holy text, these creatures did live. Not only that, they lived in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. So if you want to challenge the Bible, my brother, you go right ahead. But I'm going to go ahead and ride with the Bible according to what they're saying. So, yeah. That's just what I think about the race of giants. I think they should be left alone because we know that they were doing terrible things when they were populated all over the planet. They were known to eat people, so that's true. And this is why when you see the Jews trying to go into the land of Canaan, they were afraid of them. We talking about now, and you grew up in church. Look, I'm not here to argue your faith. You grew up in church, that's fine. All I'm saying is these creatures are in the Old Testament. So you're saying that, hey, they don't exist. Well, if the Bible says they exist, then I believe they existed. You never seen an angel, do you think it exists? You never seen Jesus, do you think he exists? You never seen the devil, do you think he exists? Doesn't exist? It's on you. But according to the scriptures, giants existed. And They still do. So, yeah. And then you have to look at what we consider to be a giant. See, I don't know how tall you are, but I don't know what you consider to be a giant. So let's just say that you're the average height of 6 foot. Giant to you could be what? Somebody who's 7 foot? Is Shaquille O'Neal a giant? Is he? He's 7'1". There's a 15-year-old kid who's 7'3". And I mean, is he a giant? Andre the Giant was 8 feet. Is he a giant? I mean, what's a giant to you? If you're going, these guys are not giant. They're only 2 feet taller than me. Have you ever stood next to somebody who was a foot taller than you? I have. And there were women, young women, who played for OSU basketball team. And one girl, she was just, hanging out at the park with a bunch of us, and I saw her. I went up to her, and I was like, how tall is she? She was like 6'6". I was like, it's crazy. But I mean, so it all depends on what a giant is to you. Now, if you're saying 9 foot starts a giant to me. Okay, you've never seen nobody 9 feet. I don't know anybody who's 9 feet. But is it so far out of the range of reality to say that there's never been nobody 9 feet? Because if you grew up in church and you believe the Bible, then you would say there's no recording of nobody 9 feet. And I would say you need to go and look at Gog and Magog, particularly Gog, who lived in the land of Canaan. And then when you look at the measurements of his bed and how they measured him, you'll find out that he was around 13 feet. I'm just saying, if you start, measuring how they measured, you find out how tall Magog was. You also know that he was a giant. And he had a beef against God's people. And the Lord actually spoke about him, said, say to Gog and Magog, say to them. He was telling his prophets to talk to those kings that were in the land of Canaan. They were giants. The spies of the Jews that went to the land of Canaan to look over the hill at the land of Canaan said there are giants in the land. So it depends on what a giant is to you. Now, if you're saying, hey, anything over 20 feet, that's a giant. That's a giant to me. Something 20 feet, man, it has to be something that's, colossal, something out of a storybook, something that came out of the water and it's just ridiculously tall. 20 feet. I don't know any recording of any creature, even in the Bible, of any humanoid, even in the Bible, that's 20 feet tall. But then, I don't know how tall Samson's race was. Samson belonged to a race of giants. Also, we don't know how tall. I'm with you, but I'm speaking of President. Okay, well, we're talking about we're talking about the Kandahar giants, or the Kandahar giant. That giant was alive. According to the U.S. military, they killed it. This is the story. Now, I don't know if it's fact, but the Kandahar giant, all these people talking about the story of this giant, that happened a couple years ago. Okay, that happened like 3 or 4 years ago. That's as present day as it gets. So I don't know if the story is true, but I know there are a lot of people talking about it. And all I'm saying, as far as speculation is concerned, is what the description they had of this giant fits the description of other giants and the bones that have been found of them. We know for a fact that there have been larger, they say Bigfoot exists. Yeah, but the reason why I don't go down the path of Bigfoot is because we don't have any bones of a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, a Yeti, a Wang Dingo. We don't have no bones of a Yeti, a Sasquatch. We have no bones. All we have are blurry pictures. We have bones of giants. We have femurs taller than a man. That's the largest bone in the body. You have a 6-foot man standing beside a femur. A femur. We have this. We have plenty of them, as a matter of fact. But we don't have anything other than blurry pictures of Sasquatch and hyperbole. We have nothing factual. None. Caveman was like 9 to 10 feet. Okay, a caveman, 9 to 10 feet. Okay, so you're going back to the different races, right? You're talking about the different races of man. There's different races of humanoids. So there was the Homo sapien, and then I forgot what the other one was. One was smarter than the other one, so we're the Homo sapien, and they were the Homo, whatever it was. But they were bigger and stronger than us. They just weren't as smart as us. So they died off because of technology. I don't believe none of that. I don't believe that something bigger and stronger dies off simply because it's bigger and stronger and it couldn't, read a Smithsonian. I don't believe that. I believe something bigger and stronger and faster will live longer than us. Now, even with that being said, those race of people that lived in caves were 9 to 10 feet tall. Is that a giant to you? Would you say those were giants? 9 feet tall? Would you say a 9-foot tall person is a giant? And you have to understand, giantism that we have today, it comes from the pituitary gland being crushed against the skull. That's what it comes. It's an accident. This is why the majority of the people that you see with giantism have to walk with canes. You don't see nobody with giantism in the Olympics. You don't see nobody with giantism throwing a spear, running the mile, running the 100-yard dash. You see none of that. Why? Because they're not supposed to be that big. They can barely stand, and they're in pain. So you're not calling someone 9 to 10 foot tall a giant. See, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what a giant is to you. That's a giant to me. That's an anomaly. That's something that's not normal. That is a giant. Not to mention this giant that they went against in those mountains. This thing was fast and very strong. Go to somebody who has giantism and see if they're lifting weights. They're not. They're not. Nobody with giantism is doing anything like this Kandahar giant is doing. No one. No one. That's all I'm saying. We have to look at this race of giant and go, this is not a new race of beings. This is a very, 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 very old race of being that we've had conflict with. And this thing is extremely dangerous. Extremely. I mean, there is no man that can take an M4 to the chest. An M4 will blow you up to pieces. You're not going to take a military A2 air-cooled standard issued M16. You're not taking that. That bullet will rip you apart when it hits you. This thing was taking several of them. Several. All the soldiers opened fired on this thing. All of them. And it took a minute to take this thing down. So we got to look at just its skin alone. Why is it that those bullets didn't tear this thing apart? And we're talking bullets that tumble when they hit you. Why? Why is it that they didn't go through his whole body and rip him apart like it would do us? This is not something that I would say, oh, this is some caveman that was big and stupid and yada, yada, yada. This is an advanced creature to me, far advanced. This is somebody, if you put it on a track and you said, run the 100 yards, and this 15-foot creature decided to run the 100 yards, it'd probably do it in about 5 seconds. Once it got up to speed. And it make it so bad 100 yards would be far too short. If you said run 200 yards, it wouldn't be on a curved track. It'd have to be straight. And that would just be a couple steps for it. I mean, when we start looking at the stride pattern of Usain Bolt, which is the tallest person to win the Olympics, win the 100-yard dash, 6'6", right? We look at his stride pattern, how much ground he covered in each stride. This is what made him tough. But what really made him tough is his power distribution. This is why Usain Bolt was so fast. He was able to deliver so many foot-pounds to the ground that accelerated his stride. So in his race, when he ran up against Tyson Gay, who's the second fastest man in the world, tied with the other Jamaican, Johan Blake, when you look at the race he had against him, you saw that him and Tyson Gay were tied all the way up to 40 yards. When he hit 50 yards, he started to leave Tyson Gay. Why? Because his stride got bigger. But he was running stride for stride with Tyson Gay. When you look at the race that Tyson Gay had with Johan Blake, and Johan Blake beat him, when they both came out of the blocks, they were together to 40, 50 yards. Johan Blake didn't start beating him until 80 yards in. That's when Tyson Gay is at his best. He hits his top speed at 60, 70 yards. Johan Blake that day ran a 9.69. I mean, when you compare that time, a 9.69, and then you go a 9.58 and see how many meters it is, it's a distance, a couple bodies. When Usain Bolt ran that race against Tyson Gay ran a 9.71. That's the fastest any American has ever ran at that time, until he ran a 9.69. But at that time, in those Olympics, he ran a 9.71, and he was like 2 meters clear. So when we take this information and, we transfer it, do some math, I mean, if you have an average 15-foot giant and you think, okay, this thing was, according to the soldiers, it was quick, it was fast, because it got on top of one soldier and killed him like it was nothing. So you start thinking, in open field, plus with all the stories that were told about them before, how they could track down deer and bison and any other fast creature. You take an average deer, an elk or something like that, or a moose, you're doing what, 40, 45? Ostrich does 45 miles an hour. A full-grown elk, deer, 40 to 45 in the brush. That's not flatland. You talking about something that could track one of those down in the brush? No, my brother. Now, this creature is far advanced, more advanced than we are. And whether we believe that it's true or not, I don't really think it matters right now. I think because it doesn't affect us directly, we don't really care. But like I said, this was something that somebody wanted me to talk about. My whole thing is the what if on it. What if there are more of them? And what if they decide to come up out of the mountains? You know what I'm saying? What if they decide to, to become aggressive? What if they're territorial like we are? We're very territorial. This is why we have borders. So, I mean, we found one in the mountains where not a lot of people live. And now we've invaded that space. Like any other predator, they're going to come out swinging. That's exactly what happened according to the story. But we're thinking, hey, as long as it stays in the mountain, we don't care. It's not disrupting the ecosystem. Hey, live and let live. Do your thing. According to the Bible, these creatures been living in those mountains for thousands and thousands of years. So, big deal. But see, when humans, we're a virus. Everything we get to, we use up, we eat, we use its resources, and a lot of times we leave it desolate. We're a threat to every ecosystem on the planet. If you go back and look at the Indians that were in the Amazon rainforest, the Amazon rainforest at one time was populated with 20 million people. They were all Indians. They had a whole civilization that was thriving until the Europeans came. And when the Europeans sailed down the Amazon River and saw them, they went out and started to, of course, mix it up with them. The Indians got sick. Yellowpox. They had no cure for it. And within 100 years, they were all dead. We know this because when the Europeans left there, everyone was alive and kicking, but they didn't know that they were starting to die. So he went back to wherever he came from. He said, this is what I found. All these people living in this, along the Amazon, cities and thriving and all this. Those people 100 years later said, let's take a trip close to the Amazon. When they did, there was not one soul there. As a matter of fact, they didn't see any city. All they found was overgrown brush. They didn't see anything. Well, now we have gone into the Amazon and we've started stripping back some of that brush. You know what we found? A whole civilization. Everything. Everything that the first explorers saw, we're seeing, except there's no people there. They all died off because of the disease. So we're a threat everywhere we go. For one reason or another, we are a threat. It's the same thing with a lot of other diseases happen because the Europeans go into an area and then boom. The American Indians here, yellowpox. Yep, they killed a bunch of them. They killed them by diseases, and of course they killed them by, warring against them. They killed them off. So yeah, I think that we shouldn't go into those areas because, listen, if something is 12 to 15 foot, it's a good thing that it's going to have domesticated animals that are well known to it, like we do, like our dogs, horses. It's another, with another reality is it's going to have creatures that it fights against. We don't know what that creature is. We don't know what they are. But here's what we do know. We do know that an anaconda, we do know that a saltwater crocodile, we do know that these reptiles don't stop growing. That's what we do know. Saltwaters have been known to grow to 27 feet and keep going. And they've been known to eat humans. We know this. We also know that a salty is 1/3 a mouth. So if you got a, let's give it 30-foot crocodile, and 1/3 of it is a mouth, that's a 10-foot mouth. Anyways, nobody's here. Everybody's gone. This is part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm out. Peace.